thought I found a nice lonely place here to make a video. Then, of course, I had somebody else roll up on me here. From Alabama. Have to keep an eye on them. Pardon my voice if it's a little bit raspy. Hopefully my voice will hold out for long enough to do a video. But what I wanted to talk about today was the importance of not trashing your wife to get YouTube views, you know? Keeping your relationship private. It's one thing to talk about things in your relationship and lessons you've learned through the years or whatever. But one thing that you go to the Philippines, you get married to some woman, she's not going to want you going on YouTube and trashing her all the time and talking about how she's always giving you tompo and how horrible she's making your life and things like that. You would think that this would be a pretty common sense thing that you wouldn't have to tell somebody, especially if it's somebody who's been around for a while, someone who's older and should have had a chance to learn something about the world, you know? There's a reason when you go on people's Facebook pages, you only see them sharing the good stuff that talks about how great life is and not doing stuff to trash each other. That's because if you want to stay married for very long and have a good relationship, that's not something you do, you know? Yeah, I'm not sure what's the deal with this lady, but she's rolling out. That's good. And, that's why you don't see everybody, or everybody that has a brain at least, going online on their social media accounts and YouTube and stuff, trashing their partner. First of all, we have to understand there's a difference between single vloggers and married vloggers. You get some of these guys that move to the Philippines, and it's obvious they're there on a sex safari, basically. They're looking to have as much fun as they can. They've already made up their mind. They're not getting tied down to anybody. And they're certainly not getting married. Certainly not putting any of their income at risk of being shared with anybody else on any kind of permanent basis. They might hook up with somebody for a while, spend some time with them, and, be exclusive with them for a while. But they have no intention of going over there to get married and stuff, That's one thing. Those people can go online and talk about their escapades all they want, and run around doing stupid stuff that could end their relationship, with other women and stuff, and go out on the streets flirting with other girls, and they can, they can talk about how horrible it is with Filipinas and all their personality problems and everything like that, because who cares? It doesn't matter if their girl leaves them. They're going to go find another one. If you're married to somebody, you can't act like that. Not if you have a brain. Because any woman who has a brain herself is not going to put up with that shit. If you have some of these guys have done a pretty good job of trying to make sure they found somebody who was meek and mild and wasn't ever going to disobey them and was going to let them run everything. And in return for being with someone who's on YouTube and has a little bit of money, they're willing to put up with the shit, But a woman who has a little bit of pride and self-respect isn't going to put up with that, because they'd rather starve in the street than to deal with it, If you have any kind of pride or self-respect, there are certain things that you're just not going to put up with, no matter what. You'd rather die homeless on the street than to have to put up with stuff like that. And, people that talk about Filipinos having, a lot of pride and stuff and wanting to save face and all of that. And yet at the same time, they'll get on YouTube and make videos 2, 3, 4 times a day talking about their personal relationships and how, their wife's not talking to them and how they're in the doghouse and all this stuff. I understand. Especially if you're older and you're at the end of the road, kind of, and you see the end of your life coming up, you don't, you don't really have friends around to talk to or whatever to really deal with, except for if maybe if you're, on YouTube and people know you from there and they want to message you and email you about the same kind of horrible situations they're in. But that's not a very positive environment, if you're spending your whole day, getting emails and answering emails from other expats about how horrible their relationships are, that doesn't help you at all. It's best to try and avoid the negative things like that and focus on the positive. And a lot of guys, if you're over there with no support network, you're not in an area where there are things you like to do, and you find yourself with nobody to talk to. So you go on YouTube and think, okay, well, I'll share this with my friends in the YouTube world, and be able to, get some support and feedback like that and feel like I'm not alone in the situation. Nobody wants to be alone necessarily. I don't know. I spent a lot of years kind of being alone. But, obviously, you get to the end of your life, and for most people, at least 99.9% of us, it's a lot scarier, the thought of being alone, and it's at least nice to think that maybe if you're having a heart attack, there's somebody there to dial 911, that maybe you're not just going to lay in your apartment dead for like a week until you start stinking badly enough that the neighbors notice. And be nice to think that there are people around who care about you and that you're not just going to die and no one even knows. And those are things people start thinking about, I'm sure, when they are 70, 75, 80, 90 years old. On the other hand, you get to any kind of decent age in this world, like most of us, you've faced your own mortality a lot of times. Some people have faced it in combat, some people have faced it in automobiles, other kinds of accidents or situations where they could have been really horribly injured or killed. And you've seen you've seen your parents go, lots of other friends and family that they're no longer here, and you've outlived a lot of people. Nobody has to remind you that we're all mortal, and people don't want to spend those last years alone. And yet at the same time, instead of enjoying those last years with their family, if they have a wife, children in that relationship somehow, excuse me, my sinuses are still screwed up from my COVID. You need to focus on enjoying your life with your family instead of going out and trying to get views talking about, the same old crap that so many of these guys want to sit around and talk about, how their wife is giving them tompo and not talking to them, and, calling them a volcano and making derogatory comments about things. That's not a good way to keep a relationship going, especially if you're going to go on YouTube and talk about other people's relationships and say that's no way to handle things. If you're trashing your own wife all the time and not focusing on making your relationship better, it's not good. It could be argued with some of these people. If you're 75 years old, you've been with someone for, 10, 15 years, whatever the situation is, and got a couple of stepchildren and so forth with them, you're probably looking at this as the end of the line anyways, as far as relationships go. Most people at that age, there are some guys who would be able to just say, oh, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go out, find some other young woman who wants to get involved with me. But I don't know, maybe is she going to want to get involved with you if she sees all the stuff you've done through the years, like how trashing Filipinas and talking about Tompo and how, they're always out to use you, and, you're the prize, financially that is, and that they're just trying to use you for your money and stuff like that. People need to be aware of this. You just can't be a married person and talking like that about, your wife as an individual, certainly, Filipinas in general, or the Filipino culture as horrible things that are going to make your life miserable. If they're going to make your life miserable, why the hell did you get involved with all of that anyways, Once you've made a decision to be involved with somebody, especially if you're married, why are you running around talking them down to other people? Like I said before, there's a reason you don't see people doing that on their Facebook pages and stuff. You only see the happy stuff. Here we are on our beautiful anniversary, and it's all hugs and kisses and smiles and love. And here we are doing this and big happy family. People don't share their dirty laundry if they want to stay together, And yet for some reason, some of these guys, even people who definitely are old enough to know better, get on YouTube and do that kind of shit. It just doesn't make sense. There's a reason why people don't do that. Like I say, there's a difference too between being married and single. If you're just some single asshole running around the Philippines looking for girls to have sex with and, have a little bit of fun with for a few months at a time and then move on to somewhere else, and you don't want to have that connection, first of all, just because maybe that's just your nature. You figure, hey, you're going to enjoy your golden years or whatever, your retirement years, and you're not interested in being tied down to any one person. You're going to sample the goods. You're over there in the candy store, you might as well taste as many different flavors as you can get, and obviously for a lot of people, they don't want to get tied down because there goes your money. They feel like, well, man, I'm keeping every penny of this for myself, and they've made up their mind they're not going to get involved with somebody in any kind of way that's going to jeopardize them financially. But you would think if someone has been married to someone for a long time, unless it was just a horrible relationship to start with somehow that they just weren't sharing, and they didn't care. They didn't feel that, like, by sharing the things that they were making things any worse. I don't know. I just don't know why someone would be dumb enough to do that. Because eventually you're going to end up like the person I'm thinking of, watching them make videos about how it's all over, And, I mean, how do you feel after you spent your time on YouTube telling everybody else who disagrees with you that they're an idiot? This particular person loved to talk about Americans, and anybody who didn't agree with him or happened to take issue with something he said, telling us how we're not very bright and how stupid we are and things like that, and anyone who disagrees with them is an idiot. You got to think about things before you do that to people, because somewhere down the road, they might all be looking at you and laughing at you and thinking, yeah, who's the idiot now, And that's something you have to be aware of. It's fun to act like you're Mr. Expert and you've got it all together, but people who act like that, a lot of times that might be the reason why the relationship is over, because in private they're acting like that too and wanting to boss somebody around, and they can't handle anybody ever disagreeing with them. I've heard people like that before in different contexts. Get back to something firearms related. I used to hear people talk about Colonel Jeff Cooper, that started Gunsight. And some of his old buddies talk about how he didn't suffer fools gladly. That's an expression you'll hear about a lot of grouchy old men, that they don't suffer fools gladly. Usually what that is people who happen to be their friends making excuses for them. And what they're really saying is the person is a grouchy old asshole who can't stand the fact that there are people in this world who don't agree with them. And there are a lot of guys like that, especially older guys. And they think they can act like that and treat people badly, and everybody's supposed to think it's cool or it's okay, And the rest of us, yeah, you can do those things, Most of us, especially you're dealing with somebody on YouTube that you've never even met in person anyways, like you care what their opinion is, who cares? Anybody can get online and say anything they want to, What people are going to say to your face is a totally different thing. That's one of the problems with social media these days. People have learned that they can, go online and say stupid things to people and trash people and get up in their face, figuratively, without getting punched in the face. They've never had that character building experience of saying the wrong thing to somebody that they shouldn't have said something to, and getting what the consequences are, So we have a society full of people today who go on YouTube and trash other people and act like they're badasses, and want to call other people idiots and stuff. And it's just the fact that you're not literally standing there talking to other people tends to bring out that attitude. And unfortunately, like we had an incident in Dumageddon a while back, once people get used to talking like that and acting like that, sometimes it gets them into trouble when they finally do get up close and personal with real human beings, because they think they can still have that attitude and say that stupid shit and nothing's going to happen, So, man, don't ruin your own life by going online and trashing your partner, And then whenever people disagree with you and maybe tell you that maybe you might not be totally correct about things, want to tell them all how stupid they are, because you never know who's going to have the last laugh down the road, That's why we all need to have a little bit of humility. And I don't know. It's a good lesson for us all. We see these things happen with relationships, some of these YouTubers, and they've been sitting around trying to act like they're the fount of all wisdom. And if you disagree with them, well, you're the one that's wrong. But sometimes you see where that leads.